I have no problem with spay and neuter. That's obviously something that you promote with any dog. All my dogs are spayed and neutered. But when the verbiage is used to target specific dogs in an effort to vilify them at the same time and essentially eliminate them from their county, because that's what they want to do. They can't ban them per se, but they're trying to. This is kind of a step. When this goes through, it kind of leads to something else. So a year from now, politicians may be pushing for a statewide breed-specific spay and neuter for pit bulls, and maybe a year after that, it leads to a ban. It leads to a rescinding of the current language in the law, and then it leads to a possible ban 2 or 3 years from now. So this is an important thing. There's already dangerous dog laws on the books.
Right.
Like if you just follow the current laws, you don't have to bring breed-specific anything into the conversation. There's millions of these dogs.
Exactly.
My dog hasn't done anything.
Right.
She hasn't mauled one of you guys while we're in the studio.
That's right.
So, I mean, this, and you can go to any shelter. I go to Carson so many times to photograph. There's 50 pit bulls in there at any given time. They never harm anybody or attack anybody. So, like Fred was saying, one of the main problems with the law in Riverside County is exactly what he just said.
DNA.
They shift the burden of proof to the actual owner of the dog. So basically, this law's been passed. So when they go in and they take somebody's dog, it's then deemed a pit bull by animal control. They have no ability to visually identify these dogs.
No training.
Yeah, no training. Even the Animal Control Association doesn't even do training in breed identification. And so when they come in and impound these dogs, they call it a pit bull. That then becomes the evidence. So that then becomes the facts.
Guilty until proven innocent.
And the owner of that dog then has to prove that the dog is not a pit bull, which is the exact opposite of how it works in America. And this is America, if I'm not,
I'm not mistaken.
Due process requires the government to come forward and prove that they had the right to seize your property. They can't seize it and say, we think it's a pit bull and now it's up to you to prove it. They have the burden to go forward. First of all, mandatory sterilization has never worked. You can point to a lot of different places for that. But if you're going to have mandatory sterilization, have it for all dogs. Make all dogs less populated. It's not just an overpopulation pit bull problem. It's an overall dog problem of overpopulation. Backyard breeders, if you're going to do it and you want the entire population to go down, do it for everyone. But it doesn't work. People who can't afford in the underserved communities to get their pit bulls neutered or spayed, they're just going to hide their dogs.
Right.
And the people who can afford it will get it done. But that still leaves that great number of people who haven't gotten it done, and it doesn't work.
The idea of targeting all dogs in general, because that's what they are, is dogs, it brings other people into the fold to where their dogs are then targeted as well. Pit bull people are out on an island alone, basically, and other dog owners really they're not engaged in the issues either way because their dogs aren't affected. So, in talking about the mandatory spay and neuter laws and, breed neutral laws and all that, if that's what like Fred was saying, they don't work. But if that's what they want to do it for all breeds. Like LA County and LA City have already tried mandating spay and neuter, and they don't even enforce it.
Yeah.
Riverside City, which is where I'm going next Friday to debate the councilman, they already have a mandatory spay and neuter law for all breeds. And yet they've enacted this on top of that. They didn't even enforce that. There's no scientific evidence that points to dogs being pit bulls or not. The visual identification, which is what they're using, is completely unreliable. There's a study out there, Victoria Voigt did this study, and she actually did it. One of the shelters she used was Riverside County. And it was like something like 72% of the time, animal control workers can't even identify their own impounded dogs, and this is all breeds.
Wow.
When you match up what the identification that they give their impounded dogs with actual DNA evidence, 70-some odd percent of the time they were actually wrong. And this is what they're using to determine if it's a pit bull, either that or if the prior owner says it's a pit bull, or if the rabies certificate says it's a pit bull. But still, there's no identification process. It's just basically someone saying it's a pit bull, and that's what they use. And if that evidence isn't available, they'll then use their own judgment and say, well, that is or that isn't, and that becomes the evidence. The irresponsibility aspect involved when we're talking about dogs that cause a human fatality or a mauling on a person, there's two elements that really fit these situations almost every single time. By not supervising a child who may, you know, walk into a backyard, get around a chained dog, and this all happens while the adult's like inside, not even watching the child or something. So, but primarily it's roaming stray dogs that do these attacks. So let's be more responsible. People just need to be more responsible, and you know, targeting millions, literally millions of dogs for the actions of like 20 per year is absolutely insane.